य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्मिमाणः निर्मिमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यपि कश्चन एतद्द्वैत 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 एतद्द्वैत.
Very warm good evening to all of you present here. We are here to conduct a seminar on faceless assessment on income tax by Sri Ravindra Kumar IRS, Principal Chief Commissioner of Income Tax, followed by a panel discussion by Chartered Accountants of our branch. The members who are participating in the panel discussion are CA Pankaj C. Govind, CA Jose Sakaria, CA R. Sridhar, CA Ranjit Karthikeyan, CA and CA Suresh S. CA H. Ramakrishnan, who is our committee member, shall be the moderator for our session. We now invite the chairman of Thiruvananthapuram branch of SARC, CA Anil Kumar Parameswaran, for his welcome address.
Namaste and good afternoon, everyone. On 13th of August 2020, the Honorable Prime Minister of India has launched Transparent Taxation, Honoring the Honest. He highlighted the rights of the assessees. E-assessment scheme was announced by the Honorable Finance Minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, which will be known as faceless assessment. There are a lot of challenges and impact on Indian tax administration by the introduction of such a procedure. The objective is to create a taxpayer-friendly atmosphere. We have here the Principal Chief Commissioner of Income Tax for Kerala, Sri Ravindra Kumar. I welcome you, sir, on behalf of Thiruvananthapuram branch of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. I welcome all the participants, the Chartered Accountants, officials of IT department to this webinar on behalf of the Management Committee and the Chartered Accountants of Trivandrum. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anil, sir. We now invite Sri Ravindra Kumar IRS, Principal Chief Commissioner of Income Tax, to start the session.
Good afternoon, friends. It is indeed a pleasure to interact with all of you, especially the SIRC Trivandrum, because I have been associated as Chief Commissioner of Income Tax Trivandrum. So it's been a pleasure interacting with all of you. Today, I would like to talk about the faceless assessment scheme, which has been announced by the Finance Minister on the 13th of August 2020. The essence of this scheme is that we want to honor the honest. We want to inculcate an environment of trust and mutual respect between the tax administration and the assessees. In fact, the whole scheme is based on the idea of mutual respect, where the honest taxpayer is respected, his rights are enunciated very clearly, the duties are also enunciated very correctly and clearly. There is a total transparency between the tax administration as well as the assessees. Being chartered accountants, all of you are very familiar with the method of assessments earlier. Now that is undergoing a sea change with the introduction of the faceless assessment scheme. It starts with the very fact that when a return is filed, now most returns are being filed in the electronic mode by e-filing, except a very few cases where the paper returns are being filed. But even those paper returns are converted into electronic returns at the back end of the office. After that, the digital media takes over, and what happens is that these returns will get analyzed now under the new scheme by an algorithm which is based on risk assessment of the department. Certain returns will be picked up as they are being picked up earlier for detailed auditing, which we call scrutiny assessments. But now the basic change which will happen is that the assessments will now be completed in a faceless manner, in the sense that there will be a complete opaqueness of who the assessing officer is from the assessee as well as the representatives. The notices will be issued by the department's NEAC, National E-Assessment Center. So all the notices which will go to the taxpayer will carry a digital identification number DIN. It has been mandated that every document which is sent by the department will have to have a digital identification number. Any communication which is sent to anyone not having a digital identification number is invalid. So in that sense, there will be a perfect accountability on who has issued what letter to which person. So basically it will start with the fact that certain cases which are adjudged to be carrying some element of risk as per the income tax department's risk assessment, they'll be selected for auditing. After they are selected, then they will be randomly distributed to all the officers who are posted in e-assessments all over the country. So necessarily the returns of Kerala or any return filed in Kerala or in Trivandrum, let's say, will not be assessed by any officer located in Trivandrum. In fact, it will not be assessed by any officer located in Kerala. And the department is trying to will do it randomly. So some officer somewhere in the country will be assessing this return, but that return will be completely opaque to the taxpayer. The return will go to the assessing officer posted, let's say, for example, in Delhi. The officer in Delhi will formulate a questionnaire. That questionnaire will not go to the taxpayer because all of us are used to notices bearing the name and designation of the official. Now there will be no name and designation of the official. It will be from the income tax department. So basically the officer sitting in, let's say, Delhi prepares a questionnaire. That questionnaire will be sent to the e-assessment center, and the e-assessment center will then, that notice will be transmitted to the taxpayer through the e-assessment center. The taxpayer or the representative is expected to upload his replies again to the e-assessment center. The National E-Assessment Center will again forward it to the officer. The officer will deliberate on it. After these interactions, once the officer comes to a conclusion, he'll prepare a draft assessment order. This draft assessment order shall be sent to another risk assessment unit, which will examine the draft assessment order for its correctness of being high-pitched or correct. Once it is found that it is okay, then the draft assessment order is approved and the final order is passed by the e-assessment officer and it will be communicated to the assessee via the National E-Assessment Center. In case the draft assessment order is found to be either inadequately taxing the taxpayer or making a high-pitched assessment, it will go to a review unit. The review unit will review the assessment order, and if it agrees with the assessment order, assessing unit's assessment of the order, then that order will again be finalized and the order will be passed by the National E-Assessment Center. But if there is a disagreement, then the review unit will again interact with the taxpayer and then finalize an order, and that order will be the final order. So once an order is passed, it will undergo a lot of checks. So basically what will happen is that there will be complete transparency, because first the officer will not know the taxpayer directly, in the sense that there can be no personal bias because the taxpayer is located in a different geographical location compared to the tax administrator, that is the assessing officer. The assessing officer will be faceless to the taxpayer, so there is no question of influencing the assessing officer. So this brings out a complete, digitalization and transparency in the tax administration. The another very major change which has come along with the faceless assessment is the Form 26AS. Earlier, the Form 26AS was only giving the details of the taxes collected and the amounts on which these taxes have been deposited on behalf of the taxpayer by the tax deductor. Now the TDS 26AS will also list out all the transactions which have been reported to the income tax department about any particular taxpayer. So basically, this is a way to tell the taxpayer that these are the informations available with us, which will enable the taxpayer and the tax practitioners to look at Form 26AS, and just a look at that Form 26AS will ensure a lot of transactions which were earlier not being reported in 26AS, now being reported in 26AS. For example, if you buy a car, there was no requirement of this transaction to be reported in 26AS, but now the 26AS will reveal that suppose there is a code for collection of details about a purchase of a car, that detail would be there in the 20 Form 6AS. So once this is there, it will nudge the taxpayer to be more honest, because he will have a detailed list of transactions which he has done, which he might at times forget. While preparing a return, he might not just remember. He doesn't remember whether he purchased the car this year or last year, especially if it is in the month of March or April or February. So very close to the end of the financial year would make sometimes some kind of a difference to which year did he make that purchase. But the Form 26AS will clarify which is the year in which the department is taking this. Added to this, there is another mechanism which has been kicked in, is that whenever there is a transaction, at times there are transactions which relate to not one SSE but three SSEs. For example, if three co-owners have sold a property, so normally the first PAN is reported to, and all the PANs will carry the same amount. Let's say the property is 30 crores. So each PAN gets reflected that the purchases, he who has sold a property for 30 crores. Now there is the taxpayer will get a letter from the department in the form of a digital communication, whether you have entered into this transaction and whether this transaction is correct. So that correctness can be now certified, and accordingly the modifications to the information contained would be there. So this will bring about a lot of transparency amongst the taxpayers as well as the department, whatever information we have. Earlier we used to behave like the person who catches somebody. Now it will be that whatever we know, we are going to tell everyone that this is what we know about you. So please make sure that all these transactions which you have entered into are adequately reflected in the returns of income. But as you know, with every kind of trust, there is also some with every kind of right, we always have to look at a set of duties also. So the Citizens Charter comes with a set of duties also this time, where we expect the taxpayer to be honest, correct, and the whole thing has been listed out in the Citizens Charter, where we have very clearly specified what we expect the taxpayer and the tax practitioners to do, and what they should expect from the department. To sum up, I can only say that this scheme which is coming in is a very, very taxpayer friendly scheme. In this, there is a complete sense of anonymity for the tax official, whereas this eliminates complete bias of any kind. At the same time, it also entails that a lot of information which was not getting used now will get used, and it will be reflected with the taxpayer also, because earlier the department would not share this information, and this information was used in issuing notices in the end of the year. So you would all be aware of a system where we used to get a lot of 148 notices towards the end of the financial year, but now that will stop, because all the information which we have will be available with the taxpayer also in the form of his 26AS. So basically it is moving towards a very transparent system. It is moving towards a system where we trust the taxpayer, where we have to, becoming faceless is something which even the Prime Minister has said that who has power, who lets it go. But the department has realized that the media and there was a perception that there is some kind of a tax terrorism that has been completely done away with. Now being faceless, there cannot be a question of any terrorism of any kind. So basically the scheme, when we move towards it, we have already started. Not a single assessment will be done on paper mode. All the assessments which are done, unless there are cases which are certain types of cases which have been kept away from this faceless assessment scheme, are international transactions. So those are very big transactions. Those people are multinational companies, so they will not have any difficulty in interacting with the tax department. And certain cases where search and seizure actions have been undertaken. Barring those, all the other cases will be assessed in the faceless mode, and there will be a complete transparency in this process because everything will be digital. Every piece of information which the taxpayer gives, because there were allegations in the past that we had filed certain documents, but these documents were not looked into by the assessing officer, or the assessing officer denied the existence of such documents, saying that these documents are never filed. Now, having filed these documents, it would be a responsibility as well as a right, because these are all digital communication. They can be tracked, they can be identified. What notice the assessing officer says he has issued will be also on the system. Whatever replies have been given by the taxpayer will also be on the system. So at any date, there can be a complete audit of what happened and how the transactions, how the interaction between the taxpayer and the assessing officer went. So with this, we expect a lot of compliance from the taxpayers, in the sense that all the information will be available. So some pieces of information which were getting missed out will not get missed out because of 26AS being modified. So the practitioners would also know, once you ask your SSE to give his 26AS to you, you would know a detail of all the transactions he has entered into. Similarly, all the tax payments will be reflected. So it will bring out a bigger transparency in the tax administration on both sides, the department as well as the taxpayer. And we expect that this scheme will lead to a lot of compliance in a better way, where we have to, at the moment, we are just selecting about 0.26% of the cases for scrutiny. For example, last year, about out of 3.5 lakhs cases which were selected for scrutiny, about 58,000 were shifted to the faceless assessment mode, e-assessment mode. Now the complete cases will shift towards the faceless assessment. So virtually there will be no other assessments other than search and seizure and international taxation transactions. To add to this, we also strive towards a day where we don't have to audit that many cases. Because, for example, you see in the US, the number of cases which go to the Supreme Court are just about 4 tax cases in a year. The Supreme Court doesn't admit more than 4 or 5 cases of taxation in a year. That shows how much confidence they have been able to generate in their taxpayers, that the system is transparent and the acceptability of the assessment orders increases. With this faceless assessment, we expect that the litigation will be sizably reduced, because it will now, there will be no personal bias involved in the assessment. So there will not be many areas of dispute which are left between the tax administration and the taxpayer. And we also expect that the taxpayer becomes a lot more compliant. So we expect a substantial increase in revenues. But these are difficult times. Particularly COVID-19 has been very severe on our economy. So that is why the government is alive, and we have brought down the TDS rates to half, nearly half, so that whatever we used to collect upfront, we'll not be collecting upfront right now. We'll leave it to the taxpayer to make the adjustments in his self-assessment tax declarations and his advanced tax declarations, and pay taxes accordingly. If there are any doubts or any points to be clarified on the assessment scheme, because all of you are aware about the assessment scheme, I would expect some kind of a interaction, and I'll be willing to answer all your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If anybody is having any doubts about these things, please come forward to ask Sir. Ravindra Kumar sir has been very friendly with us, and at the time we made representations on behalf of chartered accountants, he was very receptive and he heard us, and he was very friendly, taxpayer friendly, and he want the things to be very smooth and transparent in the case of direct taxation. So request the friends, chartered accountants, please ask questions to him so that it will be very clear.
Sir, I'm Pankaj Govind. So, it is said that the regional e-assessment, I'm sorry, it is said that the National E-Assessment Center will pick up the cases for scrutiny based on risk parameters and specify the issues. What are the issues on account of which it is selected for scrutiny? Now, will the regional e-assessment center deal with issues other than that? Is the assessment open? Now, what is the difference between whether the difference between limited scrutiny and complete scrutiny has been done away with, or the assessment will be concentrated or focused only on the issues, specific issues raised in the 143 notice issued by National E-Assessment Center? Yeah.
See, the concept of scrutiny now will undergo a complete change. What is happening is now the notices which are issued by the assessing officer will be based on the points on which the case has been picked up for scrutiny by the National E-Assessment Center after risk assessment. So those reasons will be communicated to the assessing officer, and he will be asking questions based on those questions, those risk parameters only. Now, when we go behind the method, then you will see that now the questionnaire will not be only seen by him. The questionnaire will also be visible to his, will have to have the approval of the Joint Commissioner. It will also have the approval of the Commissioner. So there will be not a single authority which will just, issue some kind of a questionnaire blandly and asking you all kinds of questions. Whenever such excesses will be noticed, they will be curtailed by the supervisory officers. So we expect a much better kind of questionnaire being issued. At the same time, when the replies come, the replies will also be examined by the assessing officer. There will be a complete supervision. And whenever a draft assessment order goes, then it will be looked at from both sides. Whether this is a high-pitched assessment order or whether it is a low-pitched assessment order in the sense that it is an under-assessment order. So even that will be looked at by the risk assessment unit, and that risk assessment unit will be all digitalized. So there will be all the information which is available will be verified. And after that, there will be also a question of a review unit. So the review unit, if it is necessary, if the risk assessment feels that either it is high-pitched assessment or it is an under-assessment, the risk assessment unit will then give it to a review unit. So the review unit will review the assessment order, find whether it is the assessing officer has done a correct job. If he has done a correct job, then that same order will come. If he feels that it is high-pitched or low-pitched, it will suggest modification, and then the taxpayer will be given another opportunity to explain his case to the new unit, and after that only the order shall be passed. So that way, there will be absolute complete transparency between the taxpayer and the tax administration. So there is no question of any bias, and there will be adequate amount of supervisory controls. As I told you that earlier, it used to be that the assessing officer has a personal bias. Now the question is that personal biases will be completely removed, because the assessments of a local unit, for example, let's say Trivandrum, will never be assessed by any officer in Trivandrum or any officer for that matter in Kerala. It will be assessed by somebody in Delhi who will have absolutely no personal bias against anybody in Kerala.
The particular question which I asked you, sir, was is the difference between limited scrutiny and complete scrutiny still there, or is the entire assessment open in all the cases in respect of various issues that can be raised?
See, that issue as far as the taxpayer is concerned is not really a concern to him, because when it was limited scrutiny, a notice under 143 was there. That was an internal mechanism which has been devised that if it is a limited scrutiny, it should be handled in a limited manner. So if it is a complete scrutiny, it has to be completely scrutinized. So now those risk parameters will be known to the supervisory officers, and in every case, the range head will be supervising the questions which are being issued. So nobody in the knowledge, when he knows that only these are the risk parameters, he will not ask about other questions unnecessarily, because if somebody is delaying the questionnaires, then that also we'll have to see. So now there will be adequate amount of supervisory control. You see, earlier the assessing officer's files had to be called for by the supervisory officers. Now there is no question of calling for files. It will be seen by everyone. And the replies which the taxpayer has given will also be available to everyone. So everyone can see what is happening.
Sir, I am Sridhar here.
Yes, Sridhar, please.
Sir, this 100% faceless assessment comes from assessment year 2021, I suppose, right?
No,
What
now
about-
from day one, that is now you will not get any notice. No assessment will now be completed in a paper manner.
Even previous
assessments, even the previous assessments, everything has been shifted to faceless assessments only, except search and seizure and international taxation.
Thank you.
Sir, sir, as a matter of control, will the verification unit and the assessment unit be known to each other?
No, the assessment unit and verification unit have nothing to do with each other. You see,
No. Will the assessment unit know who is the verification unit, who is the technical unit?
no, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay.
See, what happens is that the query, the verification, what you need. Suppose the assessing officer feels that he needs to verify a particular item X. Then the National E-Assessment Center will assign it to the verification unit. Which verification unit will do this verification? Now, some verifications will need to be geographically verified. For example, if I say that he has said that he has got he has made purchases from this person X. So in order to verify whether X exists or not physically, if that is the doubt whether the X is a bogus entity or something, so that then he will know that who will make this verification. So person has to be located in that particular geography that is over. So to that extent only, when there is a physical need to go and verify certain things, then the verification unit will be known. Because naturally, if there is a verification which is needed in Kollam, somebody in Delhi cannot do that verification. But other than that, if it is a document-based verification, then anybody can do that verification. So basically, it will be that there is a complete anonymity between the taxpayer and the tax assessing officer, that there is a e-assessment center which channels everything.
So I am Tajuddin, Chartered Accountant.
Yeah, please.
I would like to ask two questions. One, when some documents are to be submitted during the assessment process, e-assessment process, where it should be submitted? And second, when the original documents were called for scrutiny are in Malayalam, how will the authenticity be certified and who has to certify and submit to the assessment unit?
See, earlier also, all the assessing officers, even in Kerala, may not have known Malayalam completely. Because many times the SSCs, the assistant commissioners were from outside. So most of the documents, and as you know, the language which we follow in tribunal is English only. So whenever you file assessment order which is done in a local language also, because as per Rajbhasha, many of the assessment orders were being passed in Hindi. So, but then whenever there was an appeal in the tribunal, whether SSC's appeal or the department appeal, all the papers had to be translated. So here what will happen mostly is that if the documents are to be filed, all the documents are to be uploaded to the e-assessment center only. It will not be to the individual officer. So all the mails you will receive a questionnaire saying that please submit your documents to this email address. Once you submit it to that email address, your job is done. That all the documents will go to the National E-Assessment Center. They will in turn forward it to the assessing office. No, as far as the question of translation of these documents is concerned, that is the issue left to the assessing officer. If he feels that these documents need to be translated, he will ask for translations. So then possibly it could either be done at the departmental level, or we could ask the SSC if you could help us with the translation, it would be fine. But by and large, we have seen that most of the documents which are filed are primarily in English, except for a very few small amount of communication which is done in regional languages. For example, here in Malayalam, other places Hindi. most of the communication, I have worked far and wide, meaning I have worked in Bihar, I have worked in Punjab, I have worked in Orissa, I have worked in Gujarat, I have worked in Maharashtra. In my experience of this last 33, 34 years, hardly any document is filed in, meaning if you take the percentage, it will not even be 0.1%. Most of the documents are filed in English only. So that should not pose such a major challenge, because even the language which the chartered accountants use at most places, all the tax practitioners use are English only.
So another thing is whether the communications are sent to the representative chartered accountant or to the SSE.
See, the point is that whatever email address, basically it is all digital based. So we expect that what we say is that we will be addressing the communication to the SSE. If he wants to engage a representative, representative is a very close person to the SSE. So we expect there has to be a total transparency between the department and the taxpayer. It is also between the representative and the taxpayer. So now, earlier it used to happen that 26As, because invariably the practitioners also insist on a certain document. For example, anybody auditing a case would definitely need a bank statement. So you ask the SSE to give you his bank statement. So similarly, now you will be asking him to give his 26As, which will bring out a lot of information with the department before you. So that is a very close, and we expect the chartered accountants, the practitioners, to be very close confidants of the SSE. So there is no reason why we should expect that there should be something hiding between the taxpayer and the chartered accountant or the representative. So there has to be a complete openness, complete honesty, and complete trust between the two of them. And we expect, it is mentioned in our citizens charter, that we expect the SSE to know what the chartered accountant has committed, how he has said. So there should be a complete trust and complete faith. I hope that clarifies. So if you have given the email address as your address, it will come to you. But
it's a substantial portion of the assessees are maintaining manual books. I'm just wondering how this verification unit will physically verify without verifying the books of accounts. How they will be able to make the assessment with the verification unit being situated in a faraway location, as you said. Now, with so many large number having manual books, how this system is practicable, sir?
That is where we trust the chartered accountants. That you have audited the books. If you have audited the books, they have done it correctly.
That is true. If they want to verify the books, how will we produce? That's what I am asking you.
See, if it is requirement, if there is a requirement of books, then we would also know whether most of the, let's take two examples of a big taxpayer and a small taxpayer. The large taxpayers, the books are mostly on tally or on computers. For very small taxpayers, the books will be manual. So as it is for a turnover of 5 crores, they tell you that okay, up to 5 crores or up to 1 crore, you do not need to maintain books of account. So you can say that I have not maintained books of account. Only when then the trust deficit of the chartered accountants would be at stake, if we have really got some information to say that the books of accounts have not recorded the transactions properly. So in those cases, maybe verification units, but that will be few and far in between. That will not be necessary. Because
in metros, in Bombay, Calcutta, and all that, assessees are having manual books with turnover above 50 crores, maybe quite large. I'm telling you. So in such cases, how this system will be practical to verify the books? Without verifying the books, how can you make an assessment?
See, basically that is why we say, honor the honest, we are trusting you. We have casted a lot of responsibility on the chartered accountants by way of section 44. Because basically, once you are auditing the books, we believe the books to be correct and true.
Okay, that's good.
So now with every kind of responsibility, every kind of right also comes a set of duties. So we expect the chartered accountant fraternity to be very honest in its work, that you have audited the books of accounts properly. Because let me tell you again, if the chartered accountant has done his job properly, and you see, he cannot also physically check each and every entry. Maybe if you look at a case, for example, let's say Grasim or Hindalco or Reliance Industries, what is the turnover? It is huge. So in such cases, we have to go by some kind of a materiality concept and you check the material things. That is how every chartered accountant also follows. Because chartered accountants, some of them have been auditing maybe 10 banks, 10 branches of a bank. Each bank has how many transactions? It will run into crores of transactions. How much time will it take to go through each and every transaction? So unless there is a risk involved in these transactions, there is no need to go into the transactions in detail. If at all the books of accounts would be needed, then our offices are still located all over the places. So verification units will be called to look at these verifications, and most of these verifications will be again in e-mode. We will ask you to scan a couple of pages of your physical books and maybe upload that, if at all it is necessary. But I believe that most of the time it will not be necessary because we are trusting the taxpayer. The mode is going to be trust now. Mode is not going to be distrust. If you have maintained, if you say you have maintained books of accounts, we trust you that you have maintained books of accounts. We trust that you have done your auditing properly. So there is no need.
Absolutely. That is fantastic, sir. You said that.
Good afternoon, sir.
Vinod.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Vinod.
Yeah, Vinod. How are you?
Yeah, fine, sir. Sir, my doubt is regarding to, there is a, the SSC can request for a video conferencing to explain some points. There is a provision like that. That is, SSC can request.
No, that is what we are trying to get away from. That is why we do not want a face. That is why it is called not an e-assessment. It is called a faceless assessment. If you want a video conferencing, you will get a video conferencing with a verification unit, or maybe some other person, not the assessing.
Not with the assessing officer.
Not with the assessing. Because that is what we want to prevent. You see, because if video conferencing is allowed, it does away with transparency completely.
There may be issues of a larger nature.
Yeah, some explanation we need to give. So to make it our stand more effective, some cases it may require, sir. That is why.
You are right, but then what we are doing is, rather than have a face-to-face interaction with the assessing officer, what we are trying to do is that we are having supervisory controls. What you are trying to say will be available to not only the assessing officer, his supervisory officers also. So if he doesn't understand, his supervisory officer will certainly understand, and if both of them don't understand, the risk assessment unit will understand.
And so that will also be recorded.
That will also be recorded. It will not a single piece of paper or whatever information will not be recorded either way. If you get a notice which does not give you the digital identification number, you can tear that notice and throw it in the dustbin.
Okay.
Every notice which is issued by the department, every letter which is issued by the department will now have a digital identification number. It can be traced to a person who has generated this letter. And if it is not generated on the system, then it is not a communication meant by the department.
Okay.
To that extent, it cannot be that you got some letter which was not recorded. It will never happen.
The question he asked will be complete only if there are norms for allowing the personal hearing. It says that at the discretion of the principal chief commissioner or director general. Now, in most of the assessment, there are very complex issues which cannot be fully put into black and white. There has to be some way of personally communicating the issues to explain and understand the facts, the identity of facts with the case law and our case. There are complicated issues which have huge tax implications. So personal hearing is a fundamental right to the SSC. It cannot be restricted by saying that, at the discretion of the principal chief commissioner or director general. That would be very unfair.
What we expect, as Pankaj Bhai, the whole scheme is yet to really take off. We'll come across these issues as and when we come across. What we expect is that with a larger amount of supervisory control and the faceless thing, because we were facing a lot of criticism in the sense that this assessing officer is harsh because he knows me, he wants to harass me. That is being done away with. Now there is no reason for anyone to feel that somebody who is not located in a geographical area, who has never seen your face, how will he be in a position or biased against you? When the whole milieu of the department is go and trust a taxpayer. So we are trusting the taxpayer to a very, very large extent. As it is, you see that we select only 0.26% out of such a large number of returns which are filed. We have just selected 0.26%, and even those will not be done by anybody. It will be done on risk assessment basis. So, and after the assessment order is framed in a draft itself, we'll have risk assessment units evaluated for the risks. So I do not see that there has to be a huge gap between whatever the taxpayer is trying to communicate and whatever is the understanding. Because if there is a big gap in that understanding, the risk assessment unit will pick it up and then it will go to a review unit. We'll also have the technical units which will advise all the officers on technical issues. For example, many issues are very local driven. Suppose the assessing officer feels that he is not so well aware about these local issues. Let's say, for example, of cooperative banks in Kerala. So the Kerala officers are more aware about this, but Kerala officers may not be aware about, some technical issues like penny stock, or they may not be well equipped about dividend stripping. So when a Kerala officer is assessing a return of Bombay, where he sees dividend stripping, then he will ask the technical units to give him all the aids. What are the case laws? What is the view of the department? What are the case laws against the SSE and in favor of the SSE? Everything will be open, and it does not prevent the practitioners in representing with the case laws in any manner. So whatever you think is necessary will be there. The only thing is what we wanted to do away with is faceless assessment. So unless we put in some kind of a check, then what is the use of having a face every time? If it is faceless assessment, then we better make it faceless to a very, very large extent, and only in very, very few cases, if at all it becomes necessary, then we can see.
No, I only said that there is no definition of norms for personal hearing. Only that, sir. With respect.
That is there. I agree with you, because the whole scheme was designed on this basis that we want it to be faceless.
Sorry, sir. You said only 0.26% of the total assessees will be selected for this faceless assessment.
No, I didn't say that. Last year, we had only picked up 0.26%. My aim is the day we don't have to pick any return for assessment. That is the day when everything becomes honest. We want to behave like honeybees taking tax out of a flower. So neither the flower gets hurt nor the bee gets hurt. What we want is that we want to minimize the number of scrutiny assessment. Why do I have to scrutinize you? Why do I have to scrutinize a return? Only based on risk assessment parameters. We would love the day when we don't have to scrutinize any return.
It's a very good step, sir. If it becomes a reality, parallel assessees will be very, very happy.
That is the status. Look at our Supreme Court. Every year, the department files on the assessees put together. They file about close to 4,000 to 5,000 cases in the Supreme Court in India. Whereas in the US, just about 4 tax cases are 4 to 5, less than 10 are admitted by the Supreme Court every year. So you can imagine the number of taxpayers in the US is almost as comparable to that of India.
Sir, sir, I would like to point out one thing. I think if you take the Income Tax Act of Indian Income Tax, it's very complicated, complex, amended year after year. That may not be the case with the Income Tax Act of the US. It may be simple. It may be.
I just tell you, Income Tax Act.
I think so.
That is where you are wrong. The Income Tax Act is just about 298 sections. It is a fat book. There, the IRS, US, the Tax Act is about 18 volumes. So they have a very detailed list of every trade, and it is on trade-based kind of assessments. So let me tell you that it is not very different.
Ma'am, sir, I am talking about the compliance side of it.
Even
it may be having 18 volumes, but it may be dealing with certain other things, as you said about trade and or.
Correct. So what we have done.
Talking about the procedural aspects.
Procedurally, we have been more than fair. We have given you a section 44 AD where you just any trade. We don't even specify the trade. You have this trade. You have this much turnover. That has become applicable to many trades now. You don't want to maintain books of accounts, do away with it, just file this much and that will be happy. We don't ask you to maintain books of accounts. Now, if you want to maintain, if you say that I do not have that much, because you see, the rates are decided in consultation with ICAI, with it's an open forum, like the TDS rates. You see, TDS rates are not just determined by the department in a random manner. The parliament approves that. So it has the widest possible discussion you can think of. Now, after having said that, that TDS, let's say, for example, in the case of a doctor, is to be done at 10%. So what is the expectation? The expectation is if the receipts are 100, he has paid 10 rupees as tax. Now, if his receipts are 100, we expect his income to be 30, let's say. That if it is 30, then only the 10 rupees will be taxed. So basically, all these thumb rule kind of decisions, which are presumptive taxation, are very liberal. When you say a contract, it is 8%. If you take a shopkeeper, it is 8%. So these rates are not decided by the income tax department. These rates are decided by the Parliament of India. So the widest possible consultation has gone into it. ICAI, trade bodies, everybody has been consulted and those records are taken. So basically we expect a lot of compliance and a lot of freedom is given. Only when they were a large taxpayer having a turnover of more than 5 crores, then only you are subjected to some kind of a rigor. Because in such cases, naturally it is important that, and there also we are trusting everyone that the chartered accountant who's auditing it is a very, very honest and friendly guy. He has done the auditing properly, so we don't need to look at the books till there is an adequate requirement. So that in that sense, I would say that the income tax department in India, we are doing a much wider job and we are putting in more trust in the taxpayer now, especially when we are going into the faceless assessment scheme, and the verification unit will also do primarily verification on e-mode. The verification in physical mode or an intrusive verification will be very, very, very limited, and it will be, at the instance of the highest supervisory officers as you can think of. So you do not expect somebody at a very, very high rank to, use his powers frivolously to harass somebody. Because somewhere down the line, we have to draw a line. For example, search and seizure is carried out by the approval of the Director General. So it is not somebody who wants to decide to search somebody and you can go and search somebody. Even the surveys and all which used to happen earlier, now will have to be done with very, very great caution and authority. So when we are the idea of this faceless assessment is honoring this honest concept of the finance minister and the prime minister is primarily based on the fact that we want to be there to be a complete trust between the taxpayer and the tax administration. At the same time, we expect the chartered accountant fraternity to help us popularize the scheme, explain the scheme to the taxpayer so that everybody is benefited and they really understand what it means to trust. And of course, there's a set of duties attached to it, which I expect all the chartered accountants being our co-partners to help us in this scheme. Does that clarify your question?
Yes, of course.
Sir, I am Shivraman. Sir, I would like to have a small question, slightly out of the main issue. Since we are going to have faceless or assessments being done, do you foresee in the near future the reduction of number of income taxes offices across the country, and then more of centralized offices in various zones to deal with this faceless assessments to go on? Since it's all electronic, so are you expecting a reduction in the number of offices across the country, number of officers also, and centralized offices?
See, centralized offices, we would love to have centralized offices, but it is a very distant dream. You see, what happens is that we need verification units. So I cannot ask that you get your return verified at Delhi. So basically, if verification units have to be geographically located, processing units could be centrally located, but then we cannot, it is a misconception that the machine will do everything. The machine is only important. I remember one thing that Somebody just typed on the computer, "Who is my father?" It said a donkey. He said, "Arey, what is this computer?" He said, "Have you told me that you are a man?" So first of all, you have to ask a proper question to get a proper answer. So it is always the man behind the machine which is important. For example, risk assessment, the machine has to be taught. So somebody has to be there to teach. Well, what are the parameters we have to select for risk assessment will have to be done by a taxman. I cannot ask a police officer to do this because every transaction he says, "Arey, 50 crore ka saman usne kharid liya." Arey, he doesn't know that many companies purchase hundreds of crores worth of goods because he may, being a constable, he may not have the idea. So he has never dealt with taxation. So everybody has his domain knowledge. The domain knowledge has to be at work because auditing, if you ask me to audit a book of account, now it will be a very different matter for me. If I do it, I'll do it from tax audit point of view. What about the other points of view? Basically when the audit is done, audit has come not because of 4480, it used to exist earlier also. It inspires a lot of confidence amongst investors because you will see whenever a foreign investor wants to invest in an Indian entity, it at times specifies that please get your books of accounts audited by let's say PricewaterhouseCoopers or Arthur Anderson or so and so. The reason is that there's a certain amount of trust associated with the particular set, with the brand name. So similarly here, what we are expecting is that there will be a man behind the machine, but that man will not be at a very low level because whatever we expect is low level computations. We don't want anything going wrong. Then a high level intervention is needed, of course. For example, we are a nascent country. We cannot expect the revenues to be squandered away because you see, like food, taxation is a necessity. Kautilya in his Arthashastra has said, Kosh Mulo Danda. Revenues are the backbone of administration. Without revenues, can any government function anywhere? It's like police. So without police, the state cannot function. Without revenues, the police can't function. Will you have a policeman if you don't pay him salaries? So basically, it has to be evolving like that, we'll need men, we'll need taxmen. And taxmen will be there all over the country.
Sir, one more question. Would we be having more grievances cell because a lot of income tax assessees as well as representatives have grievances. So grievances cell ought to be, has to be faced. You have to meet the person and explain. So those kind of things, at least, would there be any grievances cell running across the country in various places?
These grievances are already in existence. We are handling grievances every day. But what we expect with faceless assessment, there should not be any grievances. Since the person is faceless, why do you have a grievance against a faceless person? So basically, you may have a grievance on something. The grievances you see, what was happening earlier? Many of these grievances were being generated because of discourteous behavior. They were being generated because of personal kind of biases. All those personal biases, discourteous behavior, etc., will be a thing of the past. So what is a grievance? If it is an issue-based grievance, there are forums to appeal. You will not see that you have been persecuted against, because you see, more pain is caused by feeling of persecution rather than the feeling of having to pay. If you find that everybody has to pay and everybody is paying, you will not feel the pinch of paying that. But you get the pinch only when somebody has been able to get away and you have to pay. So that feeling we are trying to do away with by saying this e-assessment is faceless. Why will a faceless person have a grievance against you or an axe to grind against you? So with that we expect and believe that a lot of grievances will come down. As far as the other earlier issues are concerned, we are trying to solve as many as possible. And there on this, I can also use this forum to tell you that we have a Vivad Se Vishwas scheme. So we can, all our past disputes we can settle, and let's go ahead, आगे बढ़िए, काम पे चलिए.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, sir. We had a very nice, very transparent, very crystal clear session from you, sir. We always thank you and the income tax department for being so friendly with the chartered accountants, the intermediary between the taxpayer and the government. And we are given opportunity to hear from you, and you have been very receptive, and you have made the point regarding the faceless assessment crystal clear in front of us. Thank you for cooperating with us and enlightening us, sir. And I also thank the income tax department for coming forward in arranging this with us, and we are more clear about the aspect now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. It's always been a pleasure interacting with the Chartered Accountants of Trivandrum. If you remember, we started with a cricket match, and that spirit of sportsmanship and brotherhood continues, and we shall interact further whenever any kind of session, any clarification is needed by any one of you. You are always free to come, and we'll have a very nice session all the time. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure interacting with all of you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We hope the relationship will continue, sir.
Certainly, certainly.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we will have a panel discussion. Rema?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We will now start the panel discussion. We now invite CA Ramakrishnan, our committee member, to moderate the session, and also CA Pangatsi Govind sir, CA Joe Sakriya sir, CA Sridhar sir, CA Ranjit Karthikeyan sir, and CA Suresh S. Ramakrishnan sir, over to you.
It is indeed a pleasure to be amongst the leading chartered accountants, senior chartered accountants of Trivandrum. So I welcome all of you to this discussion. I would like to set the tone for the discussion by giving this headline. Is our apprehension baseless regarding the faceless assessment on income tax? We had a very good interaction with the Principal Chief Commissioner of Kerala. So your apprehensions were somewhat addressed by the Principal Chief Commissioner. So now let us have this discussion lively, very fruitful and insightful. Is apprehension we raised are baseless as far as the proposed faceless assessment on income tax? Now over to Pangatsi Govind to start the discussion. Pangatsi Govind sir?
I'm not audible. Pangatsi.
So, Joseph, sir, you can start.
No, I'll start. No problem. Oh. Yeah, the chairman of the branch, Mr. Anil Kumar, respected Chief Principal Commissioner of Income Tax Kerala, if he is present. I don't know if he is present. The moderator of the discussion, Mr. Ramakrishnan Iyer, my co-panelist, and fellow chartered accountants. So we had a very good presentation, excellent presentation from our Principal Chief Commissioner of Income Tax Kerala, who has highlighted the thrust of the entire faceless scheme, saying that it is a mutual trust between the taxpayer and the department. That is the foundation of the faceless assessment scheme. He has emphasized that the chartered accountants have a big role to play in between. They have to take note of this. I asked him a question, how the verification unit is going to verify so many manual books of accounts. And he answered very, very aptly, and I was feeling very proud to hear that it is because of the trust that the department has on the chartered accountants that we hope and expect that the number of issues will not be much. So overall, the broad parameters, the ambience, and the setting in which this faceless scheme has come is outstanding, excellent. We as chartered accountants body, fraternity, welcome this in a wholehearted measure. You know, our long-standing complaints of being abused, being harassed, and being hit on the wrong side of the fence will all go away if this scheme becomes successful and very good on either side. So to make this successful, we chartered accountants have to take the call. That is the message. The tax audits, which is the foundation of the assessment done by the assessing officers, have to be done more accurately, more correctly, much more in detail, in absolute compliance with the provisions of the Act. We cannot afford to be vague. The third-party reporting must be very precise. Each and every certification is a special purpose certification for the tax department, and the assessing officer is having a power also to levy penalty of 10,000 per mistake as per the Act. I think it is under 271A or so. That being so, the whole scheme will become successful only we chartered accountants rise up and help the government to discharge its duties of levy and collection of tax, and the taxpayers to be honest and straightforward and pay the rightful dues to the government. So on that count, we have to be more vigilant, due diligence in tax audit, particularly because this 26A is more revealing now. It gives everything. So if the tax audit reports, fails to take account of those large transactions, we chartered accountants will be in a very awkward position. So my friends, the most important thing I would like to strike as a message here is that we have to intensify our efforts in making the tax audit reports as complete, as correct, as transparent, as visible, and as effective as it would be required for assessing officers to complete the assessment under faceless assessment mode. Now, this is a very welcome development in the field of assessment. It's a historical event. The 13th day of August 2020 is a watershed for the professional chartered accounts, landmark day, because the government is trusting. Government has given a taxpayers chapter saying that we trust you, honoring the honest. That's the great word, honoring the honest. All along our complaint, the taxpayers' grievance has been that the good taxpayers are put to agony, and the people who evade tax get away by hook or crook. Now the government says that we honor the honest. What can be better than that? So that statement, lead statement in announcing the bringing out of the faceless scheme is very noteworthy, exemplary, and outstanding. So there are a lot of positive features in this faceless scheme. That the assessee is not linked based on his location. Locational linking to the AO is done away with. The assessing officer may be in some part of the city, unknown, and assessee is somewhere. And random allocation of files. The National E-Assessment Center is a main gateway for flow of information between the taxpayer to the tax authorities, verification unit, technical unit, review unit, and all that. The National E-Assessment Center is the only gateway. The others cannot communicate directly with you. So that's the control, the big check and control, and there is no intercommunication between verification unit and assessing unit. All these have to go through National E-Assessment Center. So if you see that scheme, faceless scheme launched in 2019 budget, I went through that in detail. It says that they cannot communicate directly. The verification unit has to communicate back to National E-Assessment Center, who will communicate it to the Regional Assessment Center. So there is no direct communication. And the allocation of this of file to a Regional Assessment Center is by random allocation. There is no bias. The bias is done away with. And the allocation of the other two also, verification and technical units, are also by random allocation. There is absolutely no bias in allocation. That is an outstanding feature of the scheme. The other thing I said that communication with the taxpayer is only between the National E-Assessment Center and the taxpayer. There is no line of communication between the taxpayer and other units. The assessing units, it's a big check and control. And all the communication that is happening between National E-Assessment Center or verification unit or technical unit has to be through electronic mode.
Pankaj sir,
Yeah.
so you can first give a brief introduction.
Yeah.
Let us make it interactive.
Yeah.
So that now.
No, I'm asked to say my views.
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You have to.
So I am saying the positive things. After saying the positive things, I'll come to the adverse features also.
Yeah.
The assessee is not. Yeah.
Wonderful introduction.
Yeah.
So let us hear others also, and then we will have a
All right.
interactive.
You want me to break now? All right. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just to give a.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You can give your insightful thought.
Okay.
After hearing from others. Your expert opinion.
I will abide by your advice.
Okay. Thank you.
Ramesh. Okay.
Thank you, Pankaj sir, for beautifully, wonderfully starting this this panel discussion. And you highlighted CA's role as partner in nation building, and it does give places more responsibility on us to make this game-changing faceless assessment a grand success. Now I ask Sridhar sir to give his introductory remarks briefly, and then we'll have an interaction. Over to Sridhar sir.
Thank you, Ramakrishnan. Fortunately or unfortunately, from 2000 or so, we chartered accountants have been kept on studying, changing ourselves, e-filing of all documents in companies under Companies Act. And this now faceless assessment is also such another new thing which we have to face. The problem is going to be, it can be advantages or disadvantages, all different, depends on case-to-case basis. The point is, simple cases will get solved by themselves, by clients themselves, sometimes by where some chartered accountants are employed. Complicated cases will come to chartered accountants for their representation on. We will have to spend a lot of time in collecting and coordinating and filing it up through electronic mode. As somebody asked, our Shivaraman, somebody asked, we will not be able to explain some situations to them which made that some expenditure. But again, there may be some situation by which these all small issues will be out of question, and there may be some legal issues or real issues only may be taken in for scrutiny in days to come. But this is to stay. Some chartered accountants will have to change our course of action, change our method of working to face this. So whether we are going to live.
You said it is a game changer.
It's a game changer. And the auditing, whatever you say about it, the time consumed, the money, the remuneration which is paid, and even in the scrutiny assessment, at least scrutiny assessment payments used to be paid because they know that we have been going to the income tax department, making message and all. Now everything on electronic mode, our cost of office is going to increase, our time is going, and our communication with the client, how good it has been. Everybody knows about it. If you ask some details, you will get last minute, last second before filing, and then you will have to have more pressures. This is all the phase to be done. And it can be positives, negatives. We will have to wait and see. Thank you.
Good opening remarks, Sridhar sir. Now over to Joe Sakre sir.
Respected Chief Principal Commissioner of Income Tax, Ravindra Kumar, Chairman of the branch, and fellow chartered accountants. At the outset, I would like to thank all of you, especially the chairman, for the opportunity given to me to be a panelist. So we had a very wonderful, the presentation by our Chief Principal Commissioner was really excellent. He in fact was able to remove many of my apprehensions Actually, I prepared a few points to be discussed in this panel, and I think most of them have become irrelevant after hearing him. And I will not be talking about the procedural aspect of, because we had a wonderful session. We had a very active, interactive question answer session, and he clarified many of our doubts raised by us. And Pankaj also supplemented to it. So I would like to talk on behalf of the small and marginal taxpayers. By small and marginal taxpayers, I mean those who earn an income up to say 1.5 to 2 lakhs. And their problem, their apprehension, their difficulties, I would like to bring to the notice and why it has happened. So ESSN alone is not sufficient to, I mean, faceless assessment alone is not sufficient to remove the difficulties. There are so many other things the department should do along with this, because I'll tell you why. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I'll try to bring your kind notice a few things. And at the same, I would like to appreciate the recent steps taken by the government for eradicating or eliminating corruption at all levels. And this faceless assessment is actually one such step, and I appreciate it. Though I have apprehensions about it, though I have many apprehensions about it, I am fully with the government in all the steps that they take to, because we all want to live in peace, happiness, without much problems. And we all like to have a corruption life. And see, I thought this phased assessment brought in on the assumptions that 90% of the, a majority of the major chunk of the taxpayers are dishonest, and there is rampant corruption in the department. I think the principal chief commissioner has clarified that point. It is not based on that. Still, I feel there is a lot of things the government should do for the marginal and taxpayers. I told you the definition I gave, 1.5 to 2 lakhs. Because no, if you look at the income tax side, every year they are amending it. What is the needs are for such amendment? Bringing in such amendments every year. You can think, you can apply your mind. You can bring it at least once in 5 years. You study all the pros and cons, and bring the amendments only once in 5 years. That will help. That will definitely be a very. That will help us all this marginal tax. That will help a lot. Secondly, what is, sir? I don't understand why we need to change these forms year after year. Can't you have one simple form for just 5 years? We'll all be happy. And I also feel that it is the collection of income tax does not depend upon the size of the acts. If the economy is good, everybody will have it. If the cake is big, everybody will have a bigger share. If you create the right environment for the marginal taxpayers to raise to the next level, that would be a great help. Now they are saddled with so many do's and don'ts, provisions, penalties, exorbitant rate of interest. Actually, people are afraid of facing the income tax department. I don't know how far this faceless assessment will diminish their problems. I simply don't understand. And I think you can have an income tax act with about 150. A simple act is enough, sir. We can manage with a simple act. That is enough. There will be more collection. If economy grows, we all see whatever be the restrictions and the penalties and penal provisions brought into the act. If the economy doesn't grow, where is the question of collecting tax? So doing point, we see what has happened. So this I don't like to prolong with my.
Sir,
I would like to
not prolonging. Yeah, I just want to bring to your notice only 0.26% of the assessees are taken up for scrutiny. So out of that, how many will be?
How do I know I'll be in one of that 0.26? We are all afraid whether I'll be selected or not.
Maybe down the line.
Even if they don't select, even if the selection is less, why should you have such a complicated section? Actually, if you, Mr. Ramat,
that is an entirely different issue.
Okay. And I thought this also should go with this.
The simplification of income tax, I suppose everybody will welcome, but that is not the focus of our panel discussion.
No, that also will help.
Yeah, definitely.
This is one step. That is another step. So definitely. We can think in those, because I mentioned it only because our chief principal commissioner. Otherwise, I wouldn't have opened up.
I appreciate.
I thought it's an opportunity. That's all.
Yeah.
Mr. Jose, if I can react to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You was mentioning incomes of 1.5 to 2 lakhs.
Yeah.
We do not tax that income, sir.
No, per month, sir. Per month. Per month.
Per month. Then when you're talking about
sir,
Let me tell you.
Okay,
You're
sir.
talking of incomes of 1.5 to 2 lakhs. You're talking of less than 5% of the tax bracket. You see how many people in India are having incomes of 18 lakhs per annum. If you look at the fact, 99% of the people pay less than 10% of the taxes. Okay. So the numbers and the numbers who are selected in scrutiny, because when I was talking to all my friends, especially in the service classes, they are all very happy because they say earlier you used to wait for 6 months, 8 months, 2 years to get the refund. Now everyone is getting his refund in time. You see, the selection is based on risk parameters, and when we talk of risks, we are also looking at what are the risks. If I ask a lot of questions from a taxpayer who has an income of 18 lakhs, how much would he have evaded? You see, the evasion of taxes, if you look at it, it could be a percentage of your income. How much would my servant like to, how much would he pocket away? You see, if he has got an income of 100 rupees, he will pocket away only 5 rupees, no? So when we look at risk assessment, and when we are looking at risk assessment, we are looking at larger risks which are in national interest. You see, some of the taxpayers, the large taxpayers, pay taxes in the tune of hundreds and thousands of crores. So there, if we make a mistake, those risks are much higher. So small and marginal people, especially if we are talking of these kind of incomes, they are not insignificant. Every drop is important in the ocean. But when we are talking of the people with lesser income below 10 lakhs, then they always have the system. You just opt for the presumptive rates of taxation and you don't have to maintain anything. We have tried to simplify it as much as possible. You don't maintain anything, no books of accounts. You say simply my turnover
Okay, sir,
is
so many steps have been taken. The act still remains very bulky and unwieldy. That is because it has been amended year after year. That's why
I think the new act is under
Code of Direct Taxes Code.
Our member Girish Ahuja ji is in the panel.
Okay.
It is under preparation.
So one more thing, sir, I would like to point out. I understand that about 80% of the income tax is collected from the top 10 associates, top 10 business groups. So actually, 80% associates, the income tax pay only 20%. And one more difficulty with regard to this, about 80% of the resources of the department is utilized for collecting this 20% tax. I thought there should be a shift. There should be a focus should be changed. That is what I wanted to bring to you.
Faceless assessments will take a right step in that direction. You see, what is happening is that when we move towards faceless, when we move towards computerization, when we move towards this, it is an initial step, and then you see honoring the honest. Who is honest? And to what extent is he honest? So basically, we are going towards that step where we bulk of the transaction we are going to accept. That okay, fine, there is no need to distrust you. So you be happy and you do your business, you pay your taxes properly, I'm happy with you. So what I want is that we want to reduce this 0.26% to 0. Why should we trust even audit the big one? When you have done your audit properly, when things are being taken care of properly, so basically when the focus shifts towards lesser number of assessments, naturally it will be on the bigger cases where the evasions are much larger. You see, we will then focus into areas. For example, I was a principal commissioner in Bombay, and we have seen that there are certain cases where, you know, certain corrupt mechanisms were involved by certain individuals, which resulted in a large number of very small malpractices. The total which you take it was huge. The evasion was to the tune of 1,000 crores, but in no case, but in not a single case, the evasion was more than some 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs. So people come up with this, you know, innovative methods, and that is where the risk is involved, not in, you know, tax going after each one. If we see that somebody is doing something on a very rampant scale in a very small way, see, there can only be two large leakages. One is small holes, but large number of them, or one could be a gaping big hole. So prime focus is first on big holes where large amount of revenues leak. So that is the first focus. And then for small holes, we don't go after each hole. We see if there is an organized scheme to make these small holes. If there is an organized scheme like making a small, for example, penny stock, how much would somebody make in a penny stock? Would be about say 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 1 crore. But if this is done on a large number of bases involving some 10,000 this thing, then it is 10,000 into 1 crore. So then it becomes a significant thing. Then that is where the departmental intervention is needed. So we look majorly at large tax evasions only if it is so. Risk assessment will focus on what is the prevalent method. If somebody has devised and it is a scheme mechanism to operate in a very large number of small holes, we would certainly like to plug that. But we would certainly not like to, look at only small holes, because then we'll be left counting small holes and the big holes will go. We have a limited, like every country, we are a developing country, we cannot allocate a large number of resources to only income tax department. I would love to have a large number of resources, and so that I don't have to intervene at all. But we have to, make out with whatever we have. So the idea is your apprehension to that extent will be belied by the conduct, which you will see in the coming days, that a large number of small taxpayers will be very happy with the faceless assessment scheme. Only certain cases which will be requiring audit, which will involve large leakages of revenue. There you would agree with us that we have to, because ultimately, you see, we have to collect revenues from the government. So the money has to come. We all have to gear up. For example, and government is alive. You see the rates of taxation, TDS rates, there was no need because government is facing a lot of challenges in the way of GST compensation to states. So at this time, still the finance minister has lowered the TDS rates. You should appreciate that. The reason is at the moment, people needed liquidity. People did not need to pay taxes because they have to be held out in this situation. But definitely, like we have got away with everything, so even we will get away with COVID. India will perform. That is how it will happen. So that is what is the expectation of the government, that the business, the economies, the leaders of the industry, the captains, the workers, everybody will rise and we'll see better days. So at the moment, people are in distress, businesses are in distress, they are facing liquidity crunch. We should not collect taxes, lower down the TDS rates. So
it's a good step, sir. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Over to Ranjit Karthikeyanji.
Good evening, one and all. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I would, at the outset, I would like to say that the income tax department is certainly gearing up to the change and change its old ways, rather. So we have had a legacy of being looked upon as a dishonest person, a taxpayer, even to the extent where the finance minister had to say in the parliament that, how many of us do you think that pay a certain percentage? Thereby accepting that there was kind of a black money in the system. So a drastic shift from there after so many years, we are now being treated as an honest taxpayer. That's something where it relieves the tax officers, the advisors, the assessees, everybody. So I think that's as rightly said by many, that is a game changer or a very, very big step towards honoring the taxpayer and trusting the citizens of India. We have always been looked down upon, and whenever we go to the tax officer, we had to possibly be on the defensive. So from there, a department taking a very, very big step to say that, okay, you file. When the principal chief commissioner said that, see, as a chartered accountant, when you do an audit, and we trust you. So that's an honor. That's a very great statement that he's made. But then when he started off his speech, I distinctly remember that he said, along with the rights or the ease of doing business, there are certain responsibilities also. I would definitely like to possibly remind ourselves, every one of us, that there are responsibilities, especially as chartered accountants, where we need to possibly help the taxpayers pay the right tax. I also have to remember my guru from IRNR, Sri Satyavagishwaran, who used to keep, tell the clients, you used to say, came back about 30 years back, when they say that, oh, you're a chartered accountant, why don't you make me pay less tax. He used to say that we are not here to pay less tax for you, create less tax for you. We are here to do the right tax for you. Whatever is right, you will not pay anything more, you will not pay anything less. So I think this is where, the faceless assessment has created a lot of responsibilities. But also there has to be a change in attitude, not just by the chartered accountant, but also for the department. From the people as workers, it will possibly have a co-working with the intelligent machines, the working together with the coexisting with the machines. I think the department will have to go out of the cocoon and work with the intelligent systems, and from a homogeneous workforce that you always had to a diverse workforce. And there has to be a kind of a smart office here. And you don't have to possibly wait at the corridor for hours together. Say when Sridhar sir was talking about the time and effort that you will possibly spend in the front of the machine, I would possibly like to remind ourselves that you are used to sitting at the corridor, waiting for our turn to get an appearance. So I think we definitely would save that, and we can sit at the comfort of our office and work. So definitely this kind of a shift will have to have a reorientation, not just from the department side, but from the chartered accountant side also. And the knowledge base has possibly also changed from to be more of a, I would even add emotional and creative and digital intelligence that need to be inculcated for this faceless assessment. And there, I am not saying that this transformation will be very easy. I personally have come across, since the principal CIT is here, I would say that, I had a personal experience where one of my clients who was working in Delhi had his PAN cancelled. And even today, he has not been restored to him. And then digging further, I found that he has a twin brother. It has almost similar name. And the father's name and the date of birth has to be the same since he was a twin. But in spite of filing everything, every document that is required, the affidavits and all, he's still not been reinstated with the old PAN number. The reason for him to have the old PAN number is that the PAN is with which he has joined for this provident fund and all. So we will possibly have the same kind of problems when there are the faceless assessments. But it doesn't mean that we should not progress from the OECDs to the base shifting of profits. Everything India has already been hit in many ways. And these kinds of artificial intelligence and machine learning will certainly go a big way in compliance, tax compliance, and possibly make our life more easier by sitting at our comfort of the office, filing the returns or filing the appeals and answering to the queries in a much more relaxed manner. And also by giving detailed write-ups, the argument notes with citations, which possibly we may not be able to do that in a physical appearance. So I personally feel that there has been a lot of apprehension that transition will be very difficult, or maybe like when the GST was rolled out, there has been a lot of problems, but we will iron it out. And I am very upbeat about this faceless assessment. I am happy that I need not travel all the way to the income tax office. I need not wait at the corridors. I need not sit with the officer and present all the papers. But the transition right from the banking, when we used to go to the bank manager and do our banking, we are now sitting at the office with a hand phone and doing our transactions. So similarly, there will definitely be a sea change. We'll have to adapt to the change, and I think we should welcome it and actually partner the department as we call ourselves the partner in nation building. And also, I'm assured by the Finance Secretary's recent statement, Sri Ajay Bhushan Pandey, in which he has reassured that no assessee will be having an additional burden because of this faceless assessment. So I am possibly taking that as an assurance, and also from the words of our respected Principal Chief Commissioner, I think that we should all gear up rather than finding fault. Maybe I'm not saying that it's going to be all hunky-dory in the days to come. We will have to have the pangs of transition, but this is a continuum of evolution which I think is very good for us in furthering our practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ranjit ji. I'm sure we chartered accountants share your sentiments of welcoming this game-changing faceless assessment. Now over to Suresh ji.
Good evening to all. As rightly pointed out by our Chief Commissioner, this is a procedural change. Even this COVID-19 pandemic has changed the lifestyle of people in the society. These type of amendments or procedural changes will definitely change the taxpayers' attitude and mindset. Even we have to change our style of practicing also. But as pointed out by the earlier speakers, yes, definitely it can reduce time, cost, and it can bring transparency. But I am adding to what Ranjit says. It requires a lot of IT skill. Even we should try to develop awareness among the assessees, and the assessee should develop the IT skills. One of the conditions is the notices will send to assessee, and if the assessee fails to respond within the time prescribed, then orders will be issued under section 144. So we have to educate assessee about the importance of the timely response. For this, the assessee, we have to gear up assessees or we have to advise them to develop their awareness and the importance of this timely response. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Suresh. You highlighted the need for the chartered accountants themselves to re-engineer themselves, and not only the chartered accountants, down the line, our clients also have to re-engineer their accounting and other processes. Now, Pankaj sir, you raised the point. The opportunity of being heard in person is a fundamental right. How you raised that point, I think, along with the chief.
Absolutely.
So I would like to elaborate on that point.
Now it says, if you go through that e-assessment scheme, it says that if the principal chief commissioner or director general deems fit, he may allow a personal hearing. That's the exact wording. Because of that only I asked. There may be situation.
The word may
deem fit, as they may deem fit. That means there is no norms. There is no prescribed norms. So the faceless assessment scheme has to have that definition of norms for personal hearing, broad norms, without giving discretion. That is the right to the assessee, fundamental right to the assessee to be heard if he feels that the facts of the case, I'm not on law, facts of the case in his case are not perceived or understood properly by the assessing authority. While going through the exchange of letters, he has a right to seek for a personal hearing. And if that is linked to a discretion, that is not fair. That's only what I said.
So this is an area where we can expect litigations.
Certainly. Absolutely.
Okay, right.
The other things which I want, if you allow me, the other point which I want to stress upon is that we chartered accountants have to take a lot of care in giving response to these e-notices. So we no longer have the comfort of sitting across, explaining and making understand, hearing back and all that. So on facts of the case also, we have to define the facts correctly. We have to give the case laws. We have to identify our facts with the case in the facts law and make it sensible. So we have to take a lot of care in drafting replies. If we don't do that, perhaps we would not be understood, and we may not get the opportunity also. We do not know how many times further opportunity will be given. Only one opportunity given, or more than two opportunities. If there is lack of perception, my biggest apprehension is because you know, by my experience, I have seen that though 80% of the people are 80 or 70% of the income tax officers are well educated on tax laws and informed and very knowledgeable. There are about 30% who do not understand. So about this 30%, if you communicate and we don't get a proper perception, if we don't get an opportunity of personal hearing or opportunity of repeated submissions, the repeated submissions will be allowed if they don't understand. So we have to take care in giving replies. That's very important. Reply must be absolutely detailed, facts of the case laws, and align the facts in our case with the case law, and then make us beyond a shadow of a doubt in the simplest manner. This is very important in succeeding the case of the SSC in faceless assessment. Okay, thank you.
But I think in the faceless assessment, we can perform well by answering all those things instead of the personal hearing.
Yeah.
Putting this in the record, elaborating our point to the point, the reply will help us in solving the client's problem. Okay, sir. We appreciate your sir, Principal Chief Commissioner.
Okay.
Yeah.
We appreciate
deep involvement in this panel discussion, sir. Any point you would like to highlight based on this discussion so far held, sir?
Me.
Principal Chief Commissioner.
Is he there? I doubt.
Okay. Then Joe, sir, you can
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I would like to add a couple of points to elaborate and allay the apprehensions of Pankaj Bhai. He has said that personal hearings are a fundamental right and they should be allowed. You please understand, and then he said that some norms must be made out to, you know, distinguish when a personal hearing is granted or not granted. Please understand that this power of personal hearing has been, you know, elevated to the level of the Principal Chief Commissioner. As you can understand that it is a very senior position in the Government of India. It's the level of the Secretary of Government of India.
You are right, sir.
He is in the pay band 17, where the topmost civil servants, and there are just 26 Principal Chief Commissioners in this country. So if we do not expect a justice from such senior officers, then everything is lost. You see, so what I insist that such a senior person can authorize a search and survey operations. That is the kind. A Director General can authorize a search and survey operation in case of anyone. So a certain amount of hierarchy has been placed, and this power has been given to the highest level. That is the highest field level posting you can have. Beyond this is only the Central Board of Direct Taxes, which does not involve itself in any specific case. So that being such a senior person and such a senior level officer involved, we expect him to use his discretion properly. Now, you see, giving a personal interview is essentially doing away with faceless. So whom do you want a personal interview with? Do you want it with the assessing officer? So why should you need if your facts are strong, if your position of law is strong, and then please expect the department to be fair, because once you've made your presentation, Pankaj Bhai is right. In your presentations have to be detailed. If it is a complicated issue of law, it has to be very, very detailed. It may require several kinds of hearings, but at the same time, please appreciate that the assessment order is not being finalized by one person at his own wills and fancies. He will make a draft assessment order. It will go to a risk assessment unit. The risk assessment unit, if it finds anything which is going against the SSC, then again another set of opportunities will be given. The risk assessment unit or the new assessment unit, the review unit, will not make the assessment on itself. Again, opportunities will be given to the taxpayer. So there are adequate safeguards in the system. But doing away with a personal hearing would defeat the whole concept of a faceless assessment. If everybody starts asking for a interview, then where is the faceless assessment? So basically, the motto is a complete paradigm shift in the assessments, that there will be an officer without any bias doing your assessments. In case you have certain very great complications, then we need to understand why it is like that, because that is why the very senior officer will decide that, okay, fine, in this particular case, faceless assessment will not be faceless. That is the reason for the intervention at such a high level. And at that stage, there is no norms can be fixed, because you would feel that a particular transaction which involves so much requires, but if it is granted to each and every one, it will do away with the basic scheme. If everybody just puts a line that I want a e-assessment to hearing to be conducted, then where is the faceless? So since this is an exception, that is why this exception has been carved out. And the second point, which I wanted to again discuss, because this is an important forum, and this will impact the department as much as it impacts you.
Yeah.
You have to be, a lot of learning will have to take place, because people are used to, you know, particularly smaller chartered accountants who are handling the smaller income cases. They are not used to giving very elaborate submissions. So basically, they'll have to gear up in that sense that whatever point they want to make, they have to be very crystal clear in their communication and put in as much as necessary, because you may not have a multiple number of opportunities which you would have had normally in a normal hearing. So you have to become a little more educated. There has to be more technical groups. There may be some draft submissions, so that you know you have some templates available on which you could reply. So the institute could do very well to work on those templates, to make out, you know, some kind of study groups to educate some of the junior members to, you know, be able to represent the cases properly, so that you do not land up, because as you are afraid of, you know, assessments being done under section 144 or because of non-compliance, we are also aware that a large number of non-compliances, for example, if you can see, if there are a large number of non-compliances, meaning non-reply to notices, it defeats the very purpose of faceless assessment. If we had wanted to make only arbitrary additions or assessments under section 144, then where was the need to give an opportunity? But that has to be, we have to grapple with it. You have to educate your assessees. We have to become a lot more disciplined, because now discipline will be the keynote. Once you see, we can also, what used to happen many times earlier, that the SSC has appeared, filed all the documentation, the assessing officer sits over those documents, doesn't pass an assessment order. Now those things will not happen. We would know that he has not asked for any notice or no clarification for the last 14 days. Why is he sitting on the assessment order? Let him pass the order. So as we are becoming more vigilant, we are becoming, you know, closer supervision. At the same time, the chartered accountants would also have to educate the assessees in a very large way that please do not take these notices and the dates lightly. You may not get an opportunity, but the idea is not to, you know, go in for completing assessments under 144. The idea is to hear you out, trust you, get a fair reply from you, and then pass a fair assessment order. So in that sense, a lot of education would be needed amongst the chartered accountant fraternity, amongst the tax officers. That is why we have not technical units. You see, you could also do some kind of a study group like that. Technical units will advise the assessing officer on technical issues. Similarly, you could have study groups within the SIRC, Trivandrum chapter, Cochin chapter, which is these study groups which know their local issues of local industries and develop some kind of templates for replies to be given, for case laws to be formulated, so that all the adequate replies can be furnished. So that way, and timely submission, punctuality, that discipline, because you see, if we do not have discipline, for example, everyone down the line knows that we have to go on the left side of the road. So some kind of a discipline about punctuality has to be brought in, and the assessees have to be, you know, told to adhere to the timelines. And I expect a lot of work on that front, meaning both technical as well as educative, to be done by the institute. Thank you.
Sir, well put, sir. Your stress on mutual trust is very much appreciated, sir. And your stress on the responsibility of the chartered accountant to meet this scheme is also well understood, sir. Now over to Joe Zacharias, sir. We can pick up from the discussion points, that major points that have arisen in the discussion. Over to Joe Zacharias, sir.
Please unmute. Joe sir, please unmute and talk.
Okay. Okay, now that Josar is not audible, I would request Suresh Ji to highlight his points based on the points raised earlier. Josar, are you ready?
Okay.
Now Josar.
Anyway, Mr. Ramakrishnan,
Yes.
say whether we like it or not,
Yeah.
technology is moving fast.
Yeah.
You have to go with it.
No other choice.
No other choice, because as Ranjit pointed out, we have to live with the times. There is no going back.
Change or get perish.
Yeah. It's like that. And moreover, everybody is now working from home. We can also have the luxury of working from home. Why should you point out, Mr. Jendra, why should you go and wait in the corridor of the Income Tax Department? It's a good thing in a way.
It's a good thing, but
so long as, say, my only concern, Ramakrishnan, is about the margin. I am only very much concerned of. They should not be put a lot of harassment.
Yeah, that is.
You
already stressed and our.
Yeah, because if they have to undergo some protracted legal proceedings because of this, because of the inability to put across their viewpoint or defend themselves properly, that might put them in. That is my only. Otherwise, I am for this.
The crucial question is: will the cost of operation of a chartered accountant go up because of this?
Cost will remain the same, because now we can save.
You have to invest in technology. No, you have to invest in technology.
We have to invest in technology. We have to appoint new chartered accountants who are technologically more advanced than elderly people like us.
Okay.
And we don't have to spend our time on going to office, waste time there. We have more time available at our disposal. So it's all good. That's the only way.
I would like Ranjit Ji to highlight on this. Younger chartered accountant. Compared to us.
Thank you for making me a young chartered accountant. But I think actually we probably started when the technology came in. We started from a static position where we have limited technology, the spreadsheet-based paper files, the manual data collection, and all, to a reactive mode where we have the standard desktop technology, where the spreadsheet templates were there, the shared servers were there, from streamlining data collection and limited automation. And now I think, are into a proactive stage where you have the web-based tools, the electronic data collection, the automated workflows. And tomorrow we have to go into the progressive side, from a proactive side to a progressive side, where the integrated enterprise and tax solutions, to advanced automation, to real-time data and reporting and that kind of stuff. So there has to be a shift in the focus, or there has to be a change in the technological awareness, where the artificial intelligence, or maybe even the chartered accountant's role, I don't know how far it will be relevant anymore with the blockchain coming in, and the self-audited technology will possibly come. We will more be into analytics and things like that. So today you have to possibly be equipped with the technology, and there's no way that somebody can say that, I am older or you are young. As long as you possibly transform and get acquainted, you are definitely going to be outdated and possibly irrelevant in this particular domain. So wherever we have the opportunity, as the suggestion was, we need to possibly collaborate, act cohesively, share knowledge, and get new skills. Like, for example, where somebody has not been giving argument notes on documented files and all, we should possibly have the drafting skills. We need to possibly have more technical sessions to enable the young chartered accountants to possibly sit down and write, which is not possibly there in our basic realm. So we need to reorient, and I think there is no other way, because the total gamut of the things are changing. The total digital environment is coming, and we need to move along with that. So I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to move forward, make our life more easy, make our work more efficient, and with a great support that we get now from, without any prejudices, or without waiting and all these things. I think we should possibly be reaching out to the department, helping them out in doing the assessments, give them all the, because now we'll possibly get into the next level of self-populated tax forms, and it will become more easier, especially in the global strata. So thank you very much.
Your point well taken. Now, taking it forward, Sridharji only set the tempo on the need for change of the operations of chartered accounts in the technological arena. Over to Sridharji. Sridhar, sir.
Thanks, Ramakrishna. Topic. I like to take it up to the level where practically we change ourselves to face the situation.
And especially we have to keep in consideration the complexity of the GST also. We have to integrate both the things.
Everything involved. Our office setup and our changes and our orientation with the clients all needs a lot of change to take place. And faceless assessment is, the excellent thing. It is going to stay, but we all chartered accountants, and that too in our part of the world where we have been implementing what the government says. Whether the government was right or wrong from 1988 when some finance minister said there will be no changes for 5 years in income tax, they made 18 changes in the same year. We agreed to that. So we are actually doers. We are partners with National Building. We don't ask questions. We implement, but there is lot of things which we will have to change ourselves. How we are going to, because we have to make money by doing service to our clients, and by the way, doing loyal to government. So we have to do that in such a way that our time is properly utilized. Our resources are also properly serviced. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sridhar sir. Thank you. Then, Suresh sir, our Principal Chief Commissioner highlighted the need to have a template by the institute. Amongst us, we should come up with a template to help the chartered accountants in the official area and all those things to successfully implement this faceless assessment. Your opinion? You are not audible. Not audible.
Since this is a team-based assessment, definitely we have to update ourselves both technologically and theoretically. As rightly pointed out by our Chief Commissioner, each case will be referred to assessment unit, verification unit, technical unit, review unit. So we have to cope up with the latest updation, and we have to be updated with our resources and knowledge level to address all these issues, especially our cost.
Yes.
Our cost. We have to train our people properly, and the quality to be improved on a regular basis, because we are facing a team-based assessment. All these things, as rightly pointed out by Ramesh sir, it's better to develop a uniform procedure or uniform templates for addressing uniform issues. We can form a team and we can sit together, we can discuss, and each one can share their experience. Thereby we can develop a suitable model for our members.
Sir, that's a welcome move. We will form a team and a cohesive study group to formulate ideas and formulate formats, and we will work on it.
Yeah, the suggestion by our Principal Chief Commissioner is welcome, and we have already decided to implement it. That is one of the positive aspects of this panel discussion, and that's a welcome sign. And the time is running out. Our Principal Chief Commissioner has spent a lot of valuable time. So before winding up, anybody in the panel, any panelists want to highlight some things which they feel they might have missed out? Brothers, shall we wind up? So over to.
Yes, sir, we will wind up. What thanks by Cherianji.
So before winding up, I would request Principal Chief Commissioner to say the parting words.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure interacting with all of you. As agreed by everyone and all the panelists, if I can say, we are uniformly of the opinion that this is a game changer. this scheme, faceless scheme, is no doubt a game changer. It has thrown challenges to us. It is like every new change, because everyone is very used to the old method. Now, whenever a new change takes place, it's shaking everyone out of its inertia. So we have to come out of our usual method and adapt a new method. It will certainly pose challenges, some foreseen, some unforeseen. So these are waters which have to be tested. Now the department cannot do and swim alone in these waters without the aid of the institute, without the aid of chartered accountants and their help. Similarly, a lot of guidance would be needed, especially to the junior members in terms of study groups, which could develop templates, could develop a set of case laws, because you see the contagious issues. When we see the whole gamut of appeals and second appeals and appeals to the Supreme Court, when we analyze that, we find that there are not really many legal issues on which disputes arise. The numbers are pretty less. So we can, formulate some kind of this thing of recurrent issues, and that will be a good aid to everyone. The scheme is basically trust the honest, honor the honest. So we should go about this scheme with a mutual trust that we will succeed. As a nation, we will succeed if we implement. So we are partners in progress. Let's all of us join together and ensure that the scheme succeeds and the wish of the government comes true. It's my wish list that our assessments should be, scrutiny assessment should be reduced to nil, so that the department only has to oversee and formulate rather than intervene and scrutinize. This is nevertheless a necessary evil at the moment, but in some days and times to come, I believe that it will be partners in progress and the chartered accountants will be proactive. Maybe in a day, there will be a time when there will be a continuous audit. For example, particularly in large number of cases.
Comment from Kinfra.
Instead of
number data
for audit only in the end, audit could be continuous. So all those things with development of technology, self-auditing, pre-filled returns, they could be a reality. But it's been great interacting with all of you. I hope that I've answered your queries satisfactorily to the best of my knowledge. And let's hope and expect that we have a nice working in the system of faceless assessment. We shall be able to, allay most of the fears of the chartered accountant fraternity. As we progress, you will see that the department doesn't only say that it wants to honor the honest, will actually be honoring the honest, and the deeds will prove that our words were true. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you, sir. We are winding up this panel discussion with my parting comment that the trust assessment is a welcome initiative, game-changing initiative. And the discussion we had is only a beginning, as our chairman has already decided to form a study group. So this discussion will continue with more participation from other members also. Hope this was useful to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Over to chairman.
Hirianji, the formal vote of thanks.
That was all about faceless assessment and tax charter, a major reform meant to reduce government interference in taxpayers' lives and encourage more people to pay their tax. We thank the Principal Chief Commissioner of Income Tax Kerala, Sri Ravindra Kumar IARS, for your valuable time and informative message. Thank you, sir, once again for your presence till the end. We thank our panelists, our senior members, C.A. Pankaj C. Govind, our past chairmen, C.A. R. Sridhar, C.A. Ranjit Karthikeyan, C.A. S. Suresh, and C.A. Joe Sakriya. Our moderator, H. Ramakrishnan, and our chairman, C. Anil Kumar Parameshwaran, for the effective discussion over the topic. We thank all the members joined with us for your valuable presence. With this, we are signing off for now. Thank you all once again.
Thank you.
Thank you all.